It's been a bit of a trend lately on music YouTube for a YouTuber musician to pay someone on Fiverr to maybe finish a beat or play an instrument part or something like that and then react to it. It's a fun format because you don't really know what you're gonna get. Either you're gonna be really impressed that you paid so little for something that's very good, or you're gonna go, that's kind of mediocre, but like, what did you expect? You didn't pay that much for it. Either way, it's interesting. So today I want to take a step back and look at Fiverr as a whole and how it relates to electronic music producers and answer the question, is it worth it? And in my opinion, yes, but it depends on the category of service provided. And I've used Fiverr a good bit over the course of my music production career, and I've got a lot of thoughts on it. So I'm going to rank these categories from best to worst. Starting off with the best, which is vocals. I've had great experiences getting vocals on Fiverr. I've tried my hand at writing lyrics a little bit. I'm definitely not a lyricist by any stretch, but I've been able to write some stuff that I'm decently proud of, and having someone who's actually a vocalist sing it brings it to life, and it's a really incredible feeling. 'Cause I've been moving at a breakneck pace, problems at every turn. It's all starting to get me down. I'm ready to burn out. I've also on occasion done cover songs. Sometimes I want to remix a song, but I also want to put it on an album, and you can't really do that with a remix unless it's an official remix, and maybe the stems aren't available. And so instead of trying to make a bootleg remix, I'll actually just have someone else sing the vocal and do a proper remake, a proper cover. And in that case, I've once again hired vocalists on Fiverr who have also absolutely knocked it out of the park. I see you here in the darkness, black daylight, right where your heart is. If you're ready, heart is open, I'll be waiting, come find me. If you want something original but don't want to actually write something yourself, which is definitely fair, you could also pay someone to actually write lyrics, and this is a case where I've had kind of mixed results. In my experience, you're typically going to get fairly generic kind of pop lyrics, which in a lot of cases is fine. A lot of EDM is basically just glorified pop music, which nothing wrong with that. So if that's a vibe that you're totally cool with, you might have good results. Typically, I find it's best to actually supply an overall theme and an overall topic and an overall kind of hook and have someone go off of that. So in this case, I had an overall song concept and kind of a metaphor to build off of, explained that in detail to the person who was doing some lyrics, and then they gave me something that basically just took that and put it into a lyrical form. And in my opinion, that's the best way to do it. If I could turn to you, I would, and change course, change everything. I turn off, but remained on, and I glide in with the wind. And occasionally you'll get an absolute gem. And this is another case where I gave someone a pretty in-depth explanation of the theme I was going for, and then he both wrote and sang it and absolutely killed it. And he brings kind of this rock vocal to this electronic song. And in this case, I thought that merger of styles worked really well and sounds really cool. A couple of tips for working with vocalists on Fiverr. First of all, if you're on a low budget, I would recommend taking some time and scrolling down to vocalists who have a lot fewer reviews, because typically people who are newer to the platform are trying to get their gigs off the ground and are willing to charge a little bit less. And of course, treat everyone with the utmost of respect and establish expectations up front. So things like, if the vocalist puts their range in their description, make sure your song is within that and within that key, or ask them what their most comfortable singing range is, and then tailor your song to that. Also, be sure you're very clear about the style you're going for, about the delivery you're going for, and about what's actually to be sung. So maybe do like a vocoded thing as a guide for your vocalist, or do like one of those text-to-speech singing plugins. Once again, the more specific you are about what you're going for, the more smoothly the interaction is going to go for both parties involved. So be specific about what you're going for, but also be willing to give the vocalist some leeway. If they give you something that's cool but not quite what you were going for, I would recommend just rolling with it and turning it into a feature of the song instead of a bug. You may have to apply a bit of like auto-tune or Melodyne if the singer is newer to the recording process, but in my experience, you can definitely make that sound completely natural, and that's never been a problem. Also, you can absolutely get just a short clip of vocals and then kind of stretch that out over the course of a song, especially if it's an EDM track where repetition is a little bit more expected. So you can pay a very good vocalist and not use up a whole lot of their time and get a short snippet of vocals and then expand that into a track, whether you have a bunch of different sections in a song or you just find different ways to incorporate that vocal. And real quick, before we move on from vocals, I want to play one more example, and this is completely outside of electronic music, but I just think it was cool. I am a bit of a metalhead, so I've dabbled in making metal, and I was able to find this metal vocalist who not only is just an awesome vocalist in general, but has a sound with his own band that was very complementary to the sound I was going for. And it was a really perfect merger of our styles, and I just think this was cool to have something that I wrote and developed with a proper metal vocalist. I think it sounds badass, so here's a quick clip of that. Moving on to the next category, which is mixing and mastering. This is another one where I've had a pretty good experience, although I try not to lean on it too heavily because I want to make sure I'm developing my own skills as a mixing and mastering engineer. But occasionally I'll find myself working on a song where I'm really stoked about it, it's sounding good, all the individual elements sound good, but the mix just is falling apart. I can't get it the last way there, but I know I really want to finish this song and I'm stuck, so I'll hand it off to someone on Fiverr to mix it. And often they'll do just as good of a job as I would, or maybe a bit better, and they can help get out of a production rut. And then same for mastering. Sometimes I found myself in a situation where I just can't quite get a master to work, or I want to get an album mastered and can't be bothered to do it myself, so I've paid someone a little bit to do it. I've had better results with mixing than I have with mastering, but I've still found some decent mastering on there, and you can get some decently polished stuff as long as you give the people good tracks to work with, and as long as you take a very careful listen to their audio examples and determine if their sound works for you and if they can handle the genre that you're working in. Moving on to the next category that producers might be interested in, which is remixes. This is a bit more of a mixed bag for me, especially since there seems to be a bit of a lack of EDM producers on Fiverr, at least last I checked. But I have had some decent results. You know, I've wanted to put together a single with a couple alternate versions of a song, and so I've had someone remix it, and I've had decent results. There are a couple of really talented producers that I've worked with, and oftentimes, if I don't want to pay them as much, I'll actually have them just do a drop, and then I'll take that and build on it from there, or flesh it out, or have them send me the stems and allow me to do a mix to just take it the last little bit there and give it the extra bit of polish it deserves. I wouldn't necessarily expect the most creative or original remix. Typically, it's going to kind of adhere to genre stereotypes because they're trying to turn it around quickly, and they're expecting a lot of people to not know a lot about electronic music and not be all that discriminating. So go into it with that knowledge, but if you're cool with that, and if you're cool with getting a fairly standard remix of a song in a genre, I would recommend at least giving it a go. But make sure, once again, that you critically listen to the examples that they give and make sure that you like them. moving on to artwork, and this actually has two sides to it. There's album artwork, which I've not had great experiences with, and then there's just art, which I've had great experiences with. So first of all, for album artwork, I wouldn't recommend getting album artwork done on Fiverr. Typically, people either just throw together something kind of janky, or they'll take like a Photoshop template and then put your information into it and then just kind of hand that over. I have no use for that. I could just do that myself or grab a stock photo or go into the extra effort of making something. I've never really been impressed by album artwork on Fiverr. Typically these days I hire my friend Ian Rowan, who is also editing this video, to do my album artwork for me, and he absolutely knocks it out of the park with really cool and creative designs. And when I talk about you, feel free to flex, but my camera's dying, so I gotta hurry. But occasionally I'll hire someone else to do some artwork as well that I'll then incorporate into album artwork. And in that case, for people doing like cartoon art and anime inspired art, I've actually had some really awesome art done. Like this one that I've used for a series of EPs, or this one that I used for kind of a lo-fi beats compilation that I made of my own music for YouTube. And finally, let's talk about music promotion. And this is one that I would recommend staying far away from. I mentioned this in my video last week about scams and ripoffs that electronic music producers should avoid, but typically people running promotion stuff for music promotion on Fiverr are gonna give you something useless or something kinda scammy. So say you wanna get plays on your SoundCloud, people are probably just gonna send bots to that. When I tried this a long time ago before I knew any better, I was at first stoked because it seemed like I was getting a lot of organic traffic and a lot of people commenting nice stuff, until I started to notice that every single account commenting was some generic music promotion account, and they were commenting generic stuff that could apply to literally any song on the platform. And that's when I realized they were all either bots or all part of this network of artificially boosting something, and I have no use for that. That's gross, scammy, and it's not legit, and I would rather have no plays than fake plays. So I would avoid that. And then also if someone says they'll post your song on their Facebook page or their Twitter or their Instagram, I would be skeptical of that as well, because why would they promote something that they didn't get paid all that much to promote? It probably means that their page doesn't actually have all that much traffic and they're just kind of screaming into the void. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to check out Fiverr for yourself, you can click my affiliate link in the description. Helps me out a little bit, and hopefully you can get yourself some quality vocals or artwork or remixing. If you'd like to check out my video about scams that I mentioned a little bit ago, you can click or tap up over here. Peace.